the books that I read for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest. One of his advocacy from Juilliard to Death Rediscovery, a pianist's mission to reveal hidden brilliance, none other than Mr. Clipper Erickson.
That's me, and how are you doing?
I'm fabulous, fabulous, Mr. Clipper. And can you please introduce more about yourself that I miss?
I am Clipper Erickson. I live in Morrisville, Pennsylvania, which is about as far east in Pennsylvania as you can go. My wife and I live right on the Delaware River across from Trenton, and I teach at Westminster Conservatory in Princeton, and I also have taught at Temple University, where I have a doctoral degree. My dissertation was on the piano works of this particular composer, R. Nathaniel Dett. And this is a very special time. Actually, this week is a very special time because it is the 10th anniversary of the release of my recording of all of Mr. Dett's piano music on the Nivona label. And that 10th anniversary actually is November 13th. So that's coming up in just a few days. And since it was released, it has been played all over the world. It was chosen as a Critics' Choice by Gramophone UK, which is the premier CD reviewing magazine in the world. So I was very proud to have that honor, and especially proud to have brought Nathaniel Dett's marvelous music to a broader audience. Because it is really wonderful, wonderful music to listen to. And he's a fascinating historical figure that I've really had a great time getting to know.
Mr. Clipper, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. And as you said, let's talk about rediscovering Nathaniel's dead. Why his music matters today. So tell us what it's all about.
Well, he was an African descent composer, active in the early part of the 20th century. He is actually Afro-Canadian, and I understand you're coming from Vancouver, so he's in your country. So he was born in Niagara Falls, Ontario, which at the time was called Drummondville, in 1883. So he was actually Canadian. Then his family moved to the New York side. He grew up in New York, and became the first African descent person to graduate with a degree in piano and composition from Oberlin Conservatory in 1908. And he had an illustrious career as a teacher and pianist and choral leader in various historically Black colleges, most notably Hampton University. So he wrote a great deal of piano music, which is quite beautiful, very melodious, very strongly rooted in Negro spirituals in that style. And he has a particular message, I believe, for us today. His later works especially have a great deal of symbolism and narrative in them, which points towards his hope for a more harmonious and a new beginning society of love for human oneness. So I think that's the message that he gives to us in this time, since we are living in a difficult time. And it really matters to have a message like this, that we are all one.
Interesting facts, Mr. Cleaver. So, Nathaniel Dett was a classical trained musician at the time when there were immense barriers for Black artists. What is his early
Absolutely.
life and education prepared him to navigate and challenge the musical establishment of his day?
Well, he was studying as a youngster in upstate New York. So there were opportunities that he had there to study music that probably would not have existed if he had lived farther in the South in the Jim Crow era. Also, Oberlin Conservatory has always been a very progressive institution, has accepted African descent people and women from very early on. So he was able to avail himself of those opportunities when they were foreclosed to many others. But it is notable that his career was all spent in as a teacher in black colleges, HBCUs as we call them down here, where many colleges were closed to black people, both as students and professors. So he experienced many barriers in his life. He took his choruses, his choirs, on tour since they were so good, and he was such a marvelous choral leader. They sang at Carnegie Hall, at the Library of Congress, and finally on a large tour to Europe. However, even though he was very well known, there were stories of where his concert announcements were prefaced by special areas in the audience where white people would sit. And no doubt he and his choirs could not go through the front door of many of these concert locations. So he experienced this in a very visceral way. But there is not really a trace of bitterness in his music. However, there is a great deal of longing for a better world and for more equality and for each person to be able to express their voice.
His Magnolia Suite and The Bottoms are brilliant examples of a character piece. How did that use the piano not just to depict scenes, but to convey profound human dignity and narrative within these works?
The piano is a remarkable instrument. When you think about it, it originated in Europe, but yet the piano is almost everywhere in the world. And it can express an enormous amount of personal and cultural meaning. It's kind of a chameleon in a way. It's an extremely versatile instrument. And he was able to use these character pieces for the piano to express images of the South. So he was from the North, but his jobs after he graduated were mostly in the South. His first job was in Tennessee at Lane College. And his very first piece in one of these 6 piano suites that he wrote is called Magnolias, because there were beautiful magnolia trees on the campus of Lane College at the time. And in the Bottoms especially is about scenes of the lives of people that lived in the river bottoms. That's what In the Bottoms refers to. And he has ideas of dances and like the Juba dance that were done by, that have their roots in slavery times, that African descent people played and danced. And those rhythms and melodies were great influence on him that shows in these early works.
Mr. Clipper, beyond melody, how did that incorporate the rhythms, call and response structures, and emotional cadence of a black church and worked songs into his compositions for choir and orchestra?
Well, rhythm, of course, is central in Black music generally. And he used several of the kinds of rhythms. For instance, the cakewalk rhythm, short, long, short, da 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 da. This rhythm happens a great deal in the Bottoms, for instance. It's the thematic material of the entire suite. So he uses this rhythm in a lot of different guises and a lot of different moods. The second movement, his song, is also about a lonely person singing his troubles into the night. And he refers to very often oppressed people sing all of their troubles and their passions and hopes in song. And he captures this very strongly in this particular piece and also in the rest of his music. It's a lot about narratives and images. He was also a wonderful writer. He went to Harvard University in 1920 and was awarded one of the major prizes for writing. His writings were about the future of what he called Negro music. That is how this language of spirituals can be raised into the European art forms like the symphony, like the oratorio, like the piano music. And he had many thoughts on that. And he was a wonderful writer and also a poet. He was a published poet on top of everything else he did.
Interesting biography of Mr. Dad. Mr.
Yeah, he was really
Clipper.
a Renaissance man. He was not just a pianist and composer and teacher. He was also a writer and a poet.
As a conductor and educator at the Hampton Institute, he was a mentor to generations of black musicians. How did these pedagogical philosophy shape the way he composed and the legacy that he hoped to leave through his students?
Well, he left a great legacy through his students. Like Natalie Maynor was his student. Also, he had an association with Marian Anderson. A lot of his scores are in the Marian Anderson collection at the University of Pennsylvania. And he was very strong about passing on his musical talent and his knowledge and his passions to his to the students to the next generation. So those people had carried on his music, but it's a little difficult because up until rather recently, his music was not well known outside of the black community. And one of the things I wanted to do with the CD is to get it more well known to a much broader audience, because it really has a message for everyone in its beauty and its soul. So that was really the genesis of my project. That's what I wanted to do.
And Mr. Clipper, tell us, why do you think that music, despite its brilliance, has not achieved the same canonical status as the work of European contemporaries like Bartok or Grieg, or who's built on folk traditions?
Well, that's an interesting question, and I think there's a lot of reasons for that. The classical music world has this habit of creating a canon of what it considers to be the great composers. And very often, these great composers are Germans. And that was certainly in the case when Det was studying, because all of his professors at Oberlin had studied in Germany. So naturally, he learned all about Beethoven and Schumann and Brahms and maybe Grieg, and those were his main influences. But however, the French or the Russians, maybe less so. So the classical music world tends to be somewhat restrictive in that way. So we need more people in our world to play music that is not in that canon of the best known works. And some people may say, well, those works of Beethoven or Brahms or whoever or Bartok, they're the ones that get played because, well, they're the best, and history has sort of sifted out the also rans and the not so good music. I find that to be incorrect because there are many cultural influences. There's misogyny, there's racism, there's cultural attitudes that prevent a full appreciation of people that don't fit into our preconceived buckets. So most of my efforts as a musician is to find this music that doesn't fit and bring it to people. So, and also people in the classical music world have studied in conservatories. So did I. I studied in a conservatory. I had never run across Nathaniel Dett for a long time after I graduated. So if in a conservatory, you're not going to find out about these people because you're going to find out about this canon. pianists also have another little problem, and that is competitions. We all, when we're young, we want to prove ourselves by entering competitions. So there's a certain kind of music that is typically successful in competitions that is flashy, not too personal. That's not what Dead is. Dead is intensely personal, rarely flashy, often introspective, and that is a bit counter to what our preconceived ideas are about what goes in competitions. But I strive to go against that.
Mr. Clipper, what will be your short-term and long-term goals?
My long term goal is to leave a legacy through recordings and performances of music that I feel is been passed over, that should be listened to. And my short-term goals, of course, I have projects. I have a project of doing more recordings. I have a recording of the Sonata by Florence Price coming out in February, also on the Nivona label. And a larger project is to combine that with more music by a Swedish composer, Stenhamer, a Spanish composer, Joaquin Turina, and a Mexican composer, Carlos Chavez. All those composers had ethnic influences. And it's interesting to me how those influences have been expressed through the piano and also through the medium of the sonata. So that's my somewhat geeky interest, but the music is beautiful enough that you don't really have to understand all these geeky ideas that I might have, but it's music that you don't hear very much, but is really wonderful, and people I feel will really enjoy them. So that's my shorter term goal. My longer term goal is to do as much of this as I can, bring underrepresented voices. Often those voices might be composers of color or women, and to bring them to a larger audience because they've been historically passed over.
Well, good luck to your goals, Mr. Clipper, and looking forward for more success. And what would be your piece of advice for those people out there want to be like you?
Be curious. I
Hmm.
don't really
Yeah.
have much more to say
Be
other
curious.
than be curious. Explore.
Yes.
Don't don't submit to limits.
Be curious, people. Who knows? You will be the next Einstein. So, Mr. Clipper, can you please recommend a book or books that influence your journey? And thank you for that advice.
I would look for books on Black history. I studied Black history because I needed to get to know my composer. Of course, there are many, many good ones, but in particular, I would suggest this book by Vivian McBriar on the biography of Nathaniel Dett, and she includes a little bit of Black history too, because when you study a piece of music, whether it's one of my interests in these underrepresented composers, or if it's Beethoven or Mozart, you must know what went on during their lifetime. You must know the context. So you have to know the history. I'm a history geek, so I read biographies, I read about history of what went on during these composers' lives. It opens your mind.
Well, thank you for that recommended book, Mr. Clipper. And before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people, because my abstract essay is already in fifth season, abstract poetry in second season, and my book 101 review in fifth season too, comedy 101 in second season, and my food 101 in fifth season as well. Geography 101, Love Letters, Movie 101 Review, and Music 101 are in fourth season. And my baby podcast, Law 101, Mental Health 101, and Bible Verses 101, Science 101, and Sex 101 in its second
Lots
season.
of 101s.
Yes, lots of 101, Mr. Kleber. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. So, Mr. Kleber, if you had to pinpoint one overriding reason why Nathaniel's Death's music matters today, what would it be?
Well, first of all, it's beautiful. It's hopeful. It's positive. It points to a better world when you really dig into it. And we need that now. We need to look for the future, get away from the problems of the present, and know that things can be better. And music is a big part of that. We need music now more than ever. We needed it during the pandemic. We need it now with all the troubles and the divisions that people are experiencing. And there's nothing like music to pull people together. So that's what we need more than ever. And if you want to know more about what I'm doing and what projects I have coming up, go to my website, clippererickson.com. And all these Nathaniel Dett pieces are on streaming sites. It's on Spotify, it's on Pandora, Apple Music. So go look for me on those sites and just listen and enjoy. There's Dett, there's much more. And I just want to get the music out there and get people to listen to it because it really can change your life.
Definitely. So, one more question, Mr. Clipper. If Nathaniel Dett were young composer today, what issues or sounds do you imagine his music would engage with?
Well, I believe he would still be engaged with black music. I'm not sure that he would be going towards some of the more popular genres because he was very serious minded. When he began, he wrote ragtime, he wrote marches, but then when he heard the wealth of music that is in spirituals, he felt a higher calling. So I think he would have been one of the black composers that are operating today and writing today, rather than just be another rap artist, or and maybe he might have gone into jazz. I don't know, but he definitely would have been a serious composer. He would be writing symphonies. He would be writing piano music. He would be writing vocal music for sure.
And Mr. Clipper, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. So can you please invite our listeners to support your advocacy, your projects, or anything you want to promote on Book 101 Review?
Thank you, Daniel. Great to see you.
Likewise. So where do people can reach you, Mr. Clipper?
They can reach me through my website. You can sign up through for my newsletter. I don't send out more newsletters than once a month at the most, so I don't like to spam people with too much stuff. But when I have something important going on, I send out newsletters. So then that's a good way to know what I'm doing. You can listen to all my work on the streaming sites. You can go to my Facebook page. I also have Instagram, but that's very much a work in progress. It's just started, so that's something to build. But most importantly, probably would be YouTube. I put a lot of things on YouTube that I think people are interested in, and a lot of it is music that you don't hear that much.
Yes, definitely. So, Mr. Clipper, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much for your time.
Modicum people, see you soon.
Okay, thank you, Daniel.